Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another video. It is the game preview, Brentford versus Everton at the Dyche Stadium tomorrow evening, 5:30 kickoff. Sean Dyche's Everton side in search for their first Premier League win of the season. One draw so far, 4 defeats in the 5 games that we have played so far, in comparison to Brentford's 1 win, 3 draws and only 1 defeat. They currently sit 11th in the Premier League table with 6 points. Not the greatest start for them at home. Their one away win, or their one win, did come away from home against Fulham in the first couple of weeks of the season. They've played 3 games so far at their home stadium, and they have drawn all 3. Draws with Tottenham, 2-2 on the opening day of the season, which was a very, very impressive game of football, by the way, very back and forth, and Brentford were very competitive in that one against a really good Tottenham side. They've obviously drew 1-1 with Crystal Palace, and most recently 2-2 with Bournemouth. Their last game was a defeat against Newcastle at St James's Park. Again, a very tight game of football. Newcastle winning that one via a penalty, a dubious penalty. It has to be said, one that I've seen not given in many other circumstances, but it was given, and Brentford couldn't manage to get back into the game and ended up losing that one. However, they put up a decent fight. They stayed in the game, they battled, and they made it difficult for Newcastle, which not many teams are able to do at St James's Park. So not the worst performance, even though it ultimately ended in their first defeat of the season. It wasn't by any sense of the imagination a terrible, terrible performance. And we know what we get from Brentford at this point. They've been in the league a couple of years now. Obviously, Thomas Frank, their manager, a very, very, very good football manager. Somebody that I really, really like. Somebody that I really admire. Somebody that I would love to manage Everton Football Club one day. Whether or not that actually happens or becomes a reality is a completely different question. But I think he's a top manager. The work that he's done with Brentford specifically over the last couple of years has been absolutely fantastic. They obviously come back into the Premier League for the first time in a long time. A couple of years ago they had a bit of a difficult season that season. They were in and around a sort of relegation battle up until January when they brought in Christian Eriksen. He come in, obviously settled down and was an absolutely fantastic addition to their squad. Got them out of the danger zone, and then they haven't looked back since then, have they? I mean, considering they didn't sign Christian Eriksen on a permanent deal after that January, they only went from strength to strength after it. Last season they had a fantastic season. Obviously Ivan Toney scoring I think 20 goals last season, not available for this game obviously because he's banned until January, but since then Brentford have gone from strength to strength, and a lot of similarities to Brighton in terms of their player recruitment, in terms of the way they want to play. Expansive, quick, fast attacking football. Thomas Frank has never been afraid of playing in that way, even against the top sides, even against the bigger teams away from home. He's never been afraid of playing the way he wants to play and the way he believes Brentford should play, and that is obviously very fast attacking quality football that their fans absolutely adore watching, which it's almost like the complete opposite to Everton Football Club at the moment, isn't it? Everton Football Club a couple of years ago were in a similar position to Brentford in that January. We were sort of flirting with relegation, and whilst they brought a experienced professional in who come in and pretty much made sure there was absolutely no doubt whatsoever that they were going to stay in the Premier League, we failed to do that. We battled for survival in the Premier League up until the final couple of days of the season. We then done it again the season after, whilst Brentford continued to strengthen, and obviously we're at a point now where Brentford are a team that I don't think anybody really talks about when it comes to relegation anymore. As I said, their recruitment is absolutely fantastic, their way of playing is fantastic, their philosophy is fantastic, and they are pretty much everything I would want Everton to be right now. They are, and ultimately this will be an extremely difficult game of football. We got a point there last season. I was there. I remember Anthony Gordon scored relatively early on, and I think we conceded with 10 minutes to go or something like that. A silly set piece with 10 minutes to go. Really, we should have won that game because we had other chances in that game to score to make it 2-0, and that would have put the game past Brentford, but we didn't. We come away with a point, and if you were to say to me now, Cam, would you take a point this time tomorrow? I would absolutely snatch your hand off for a point given the circumstances and the situation that Everton are in. I think a defeat would once again add to the pressure that the manager is currently under. And like I said after the Arsenal game, for me, if Sean Dyche is to lose this game on Saturday, the game against Luton then becomes an absolute must-win, or he loses his job for me. And people can argue with that, and there's still people that genuinely believe Sean Dyche is the best manager Everton could possibly ever get. He isn't. In fact, he's got a worse record than Frank Lampard at this point. So he's got a lot of work to do, Sean Dyche, and this whole thing that he's just amazing and nobody should be able to criticise him is a load of bollocks. Ultimately, as a football manager, you're judged on your results. And I'm not saying, by the way, Sean Dyche is the biggest problem at Everton Football Club, because he isn't. He's far from it. And he has been dealt the shitty stick, and he has been dealt a situation of a football club in financial ruin who can't afford to really strengthen the squad or bring in many players. And I've got a squad full of players that, for the most part, aren't good enough, and I get that none of that is his fault, but his job as a football manager is to get results and win games of football, and if he can't do it, then ultimately he will lose his job. And this is a massive opportunity for him to go out there and shock people. Shock people. And I'm not saying I expect this outcome to be anything similar to Brighton away last season, but if we can go out there and we can put a performance in, and we can battle, and we can work hard, and we can get something out of this game, then maybe, just maybe, we'll all look at the situation and go, do you know what? Given our financial position, given our financial situation, given the fact that we're, in the middle of a takeover, let's just wait and see what happens with the manager. And then if he goes, obviously I know we've got a cup fixture against Aston Villa away from home in between there. But if he goes then and we beat Luton at home, which is an absolute must win, and then we beat Bournemouth at home, then all of a sudden we might be looking at 7 points out the last 9 in the Premier League, and then things look a lot better. But ultimately it's down to the manager to be able to turn that around. We know Brentford have got some top quality players. Obviously we've mentioned Ivan Toney. We're not going to talk too much on him because he's unavailable for this game and has been unavailable all season so far, but the likes of Wizza up there, Brian Mbeumo, who I think is an absolutely fantastic player, somebody that went under the radar massively at Brentford over the last couple of years because of the influence of Ivan Toney, and because Ivan Toney was very much the front man. He was very much the goal scorer. He was very much the striker. He was very much the player that Brentford relied on to win them games of football. The quality and the ability of somebody like an Mbeumo, and even Wizard as well, but more so Mbeumo, was just completely overlooked. And ultimately, I think he got to a point where he's obviously looked at himself and thought, you know what, I'm going to take this opportunity. Big opportunity for him, of course, with Ivan Toney being out injured. A big opportunity for, Ivan Toney being out because he's banned. Big opportunity for Mbeumo to step up and to become the man at Brentford, to become the player that they all look to, as they did with Ivan Toney, and he's very, very much become that. I think he's absolutely fantastic. I think he's got 4 goals so far in 5 games. He's got an XG of around about 4, so he's hitting exactly what he should be hitting, and his left foot is absolutely fantastic. I think every goal he scored has come from that left foot. So if there's one thing Everton should learn from, doing their research, and ultimately this is why Sean Dyche is paid millions and millions of pounds a year, is because he and his team should be looking at these types of things going into this type of game, is don't show him Mbeumo onto his left foot. Because every goal he scored this season, he is in fine goal-scoring form, has come from him cutting in off the right onto that left foot and being able to take shots and create himself opportunities on that favoured foot. So don't show him onto his left foot. Don't get me wrong, he's still a fantastic player and he's still got quality in his right foot, but that's the big thing I'm looking for tomorrow is, if ultimately Mbeumo scores because he's been allowed to cut in on his left foot and he's curled one in, then that falls on the manager for me, because the manager should be able to see that that's what he likes to do and that's what he's going to try and do. As I mentioned, Wizard as well, again, I'm a big fan of him. Again, goal scorer, gets involved, creates chances. He's ultimately somebody that is a big part of their team. Same with Damsgaard, Norgard as well is a massive part of that Brentford team. Obviously you've got the likes of Ben Mee in there, who's an experienced professional, experienced Premier League striker. Aaron Hickey, who is Scottish international, took over Nathan Patterson's place at right back. So if Nathan Patterson is back in the team, hopefully he'll have a point to prove. He'll have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, because Aaron Hickey obviously is taking over for as Scotland's number 1 or number 2 right back. And, Nathan Patterson now becomes the understudy. Rico Henry, obviously, who's worth a mention. Absolutely fantastic player. Injured now for the rest of the season, unfortunately for him. Wish him the best in his recovery, but he would have been a real problem for Everton. And we know, obviously, Neil Maupay can't play. But he's there. He's there. And it will be true Everton fashion for somehow Neil Maupay to be able to play and score the winning goal, even though that's not going to happen. But yeah, like I've said, this will be an extremely difficult game of football for Everton and for Sean Dyche. Brentford are a fantastic side, managed by a fantastic manager. They are beatable, and they are a team that you can get something from. As we've just said before, they've played 3 home games so far this season and they've not managed to win one. And, okay, Tottenham was one of those games, and maybe you could look at and go, well, Tottenham are a great side, but they've also played Bournemouth at home, which, again is a fixture that they would have looked at and assessed as one that they should have been winning. They didn't. Palace at home, maybe one that they'll have looked at and believe they should have won as well. So if Everton can capitalise on what might be a little bit of a a negative sort of spike in form at the moment, then we absolutely should be trying to do that. Now, one thing is really, really interesting going into this game is Brentford seemingly don't like to win at home this season, and Everton Everton hate winning away because we don't do it very often whatsoever. It adds that other dynamic to the game, doesn't it? That Brentford ultimately will be searching for their first home win of the season. Those Brentford fans will be going into tomorrow's game thinking this is absolutely perfect. We've not won a home game at all season, and we've got a team that A, are terrible, altogether at the moment, but B, are especially terrible away from home, and they'll be obviously looking and hoping to turn that home form around a little bit. But ultimately, this is where Sean Dyche earns his coin. I'm sick of going into games under the victim mentality of, well, Everton are terrible away from home, so we're probably going to lose this one, because as much as this probably isn't the case, it very much feels like everybody adopts that mentality around the football club. So whilst I might sit here and say to you guys, there'll probably be a couple of thousand people who watch this video, and we might all sit here and say, oh yeah, we've got no chance, we're away from home, we're against Brentford is a decent side. We had the same conversations when we played Brighton, and I remember sitting here for the Brighton game and saying that we've got absolutely no chance today, and we ended up winning it. But whilst we might sit here and say, Everton have got no chance today, we're away from home, Brentford are a good team, etc, etc. I feel like, and as I said, this probably isn't the case, but I feel like everybody surrounding the football club sort of adopts that negative victim type of mentality of and by everyone I mean the players, the manager, the owner, the chairman, everybody. I just get this feeling everybody looks at these types of games and goes, oh well, we're not very good away and Brentford are a good team, so this probably isn't going to be a great result, and that shouldn't be the case. That absolutely shouldn't be the case, and that might sound a little bit hypocritical from me because I've just come and sat here and said I'm not really expecting much from this one, but those players and that manager the players should believe that they can go out and win this game, and the manager should have a plan to go out and win this game. And the reason I say that, and the reason I specifically bring that up, is because we didn't have a plan to go and beat Arsenal. Now, I'm not saying that it's the end of the world that we lost to Arsenal. I'm not saying that, Sean Dyche should be sacked on the back of losing to a fantastic side at Goodison. But what I'm saying is if you are a Premier League manager, you should go into every single game with a plan to win. Even if you're playing the best team in the league, or the best team in the world, and you're the worst team in the league, you still should have some form of plan to get something positive out of that game. Even if it's unlikely, even if the plan is one that is not likely to work because the opposition team are brilliant, you still should have a plan to go and get something out of that game. And I don't think Sean Dyche had a plan to get anything out of the game against Arsenal, and that can't be the case tomorrow. There has to be a plan for Everton to go and win it. Now, I'm not saying we will win it, and I'm not saying even if that plan is executed perfectly, we'll win it, because Brentford probably are a better team. In fact, they are a better team than Everton at the moment, and they're at home, so Everton could play brilliantly tomorrow and still lose because Brentford ultimately are just a better team. But that doesn't matter. There still should be that plan in place for Everton to go out and win this game of football, and that's on the manager. That's the two things that Everton have to ensure they have going for us going into games this season. A group of players that believe they can win, and a manager with a plan to win. Because if we haven't got either of those two, or we haven't got one of those two, we haven't got the plan, or we haven't got the belief in the players, then what's the point in even turning up? We may as well just phone the Premier League tomorrow morning and say, listen, we're not turning up tonight because we don't believe we're going to win, or we haven't got a plan to win, so we'll just forfeit the points. Because What's the point in turning up and just walking around the pitch as if you haven't got a clue and wasting all of our time for 90 minutes? Now, again, as I said, I'm not saying that Everton should win every game of football they play in, but Everton should have a plan and a belief that they can win every game of football that they're playing in, or there's no point. Even the really, really difficult games. And by the way, this will be a difficult game, but it's not an out of this world, sort of conclusion. That Everton absolutely won't win tomorrow. Don't get me wrong, it'll be a massive shock if we did, but it wouldn't be the biggest shock in world football, would it? If Everton turn up at Brentford, the Brentford team that haven't won a home all season, and beat them, managed to get a 1-0 win and maybe a little smash and grab. It wouldn't be the most surprising thing in the world, but ultimately it will not happen unless A, the manager's got a plan, and B, the players have got the belief to successfully complete that plan. And they're the two important things for me going into this one tomorrow. Obviously, defensively, we're going to have to be strong. I've already mentioned Mbuemo and not allowing him to shift onto his left foot, which I think is really, really important. But like I said, there's got to be an air of belief, even if the fan base, and as I said, I'm included in this. Maybe this is a little bit hypocritical from me, but even if the fan base, me included, are a little bit negative or pessimistic going into it, oh, we don't know, Brentford are a good team, etc., etc., the players should be sitting there going, no, we believe that what the manager's told us, if we follow that through, then we'll come away with something. And if they don't believe that, then ultimately, what's the point? What's the point? In terms of team news, I'm going with Jordan Pickford in goal. I'm going to go with a back line of Mikalenko, Tarkowski, Branthwaite and Patterson. I'm going to go Patterson back in for Ashley Young. I just don't think Ashley Young's been very impressive whatsoever so far this season. And don't get me wrong, I don't think Nathan Patterson has been particularly great either. I really don't, but I just think having that youthfulness, I think having that little bit of energy in there, and I do think that Nathan might have a little bit of a point to prove. He'll be looking at that thinking, well, my competition, even though they'll probably be friends and they'll probably have a relationship, he'll be thinking, well, my competition for the national team is on the other team here, so I want to leave this game with the national manager going, well, Nathan was much better today than what than what Aaron Hickey was. So ultimately, again, not just for that. That might be a little bit of a petty reason to start him. Not just for that. I don't think Ashley Young's been anywhere near good enough for him to guarantee himself a space for a start. I think Mikalenko is probably our best player against Arsenal, so he should stay in. And I'd rather have the natural right back Patterson in there as well. Midfield then. I'm going to go with the same three. I personally wouldn't have the same three. I would personally have, well, if it was up to me, I would have Onana in there with James Garner, and I would have, I'd play a 4-4-2, and I'd have Beto and Calvert-Lewin up front, and I'd take Garner Gay, and I'd take Decore out, but it's unlikely to happen. The manager's already admitted that at this moment, so I'm going to go with the same midfield three. Yeah, as I said last week, I'm sick of watching these three just perform dreadfully week in, week out. They can't seem to play together. They can't seem to put a pass together. They can't seem to, have a role, an identified role that they stay in. So for me, I'd like Decore to be behind the striker as a number 10 and not move from there. I'd like Garner to float around the middle, and I'd like Onana to be the number 6 and not move from there. And yeah, let's see how that works. Probably not very well because these three can't seem to play together, but we will wait and see. And then up front, I'm going to go with Danjuma one side, Dwight McNeil the other, and I think it will probably be Calvert-Lewin this week, and that might be a little bit unfair on Beto because Beto obviously had absolutely no service or nothing to go off in that game against Arsenal. But I just get the feeling that he's probably going to go with Dom and maybe bring Beto on after 60 minutes to try and change the game or to try and give us something else. I don't think he's going to go with the pair of them just yet. And I can't see him keeping Dom on the bench for a second week run, but we'll wait and see. There you go. That is my game preview. That is my predicted starting 11. Let us know your thoughts on it in the comment section down below. Be a difficult game for Everton. Of course it will. Brentford are a good side, and Thomas Frank is a very good manager, and it's away from home. But it's definitely one that we should believe we can get something out of, because if we don't, then there's absolutely no point in even turning up. So, yeah, there you go. Leave a like if you've enjoyed it. We will be back with the instant match reaction and the player ratings tomorrow, so don't forget to look out for those. If you have enjoyed this one, please do leave a like. Subscribe if you are new as well. Big thank you all for watching, and we'll see you later.